Hey, Brent Messmer here with Technical Taekwondo. Today we're going to be talking about the cycle of training. The cycle of training is not something that a lot of schools talk about, but it's something that all schools do. Cycle of training is very simple, is the cycle that we learn, train, and develop our skills. It is a cycle because the difference between a white belt and a black belt is that the black belts have repeated this cycle hundreds of times as throughout their martial arts career. Okay? So if you want to improve, go through this cycle more often. And that's it. It's very, very simple. The beginning of the cycle is fundamental movements. The fundamental movements are a technical application of single blocks, kicks, strikes, stances. It is whatever you're doing broken down into its fundamental or primary element. So fundamental movements are key to all forms and free fighting. Without having and breaking down the fundamental movements into their smallest key components, you're never really going to have a good kick, a good stance. You have to break these elements down into their smallest components and refine them and get rid of all the unnecessary movements that are in your stances, in your kicks, and really fine-tune them by themselves before you add them into other different exercises. As an instructor, you need to know how to break all these movements down into their smallest teachable and learnable components. Simplifying the process as much as possible and learning how to make it interesting are just more challenges that we face as instructors. Again, this is a cycle, so you're going to repeat these exercises from white belt all the way through. I mean, we teach basic, front kick, turning kick, back kick, and side kick at white belt. 3 to 4 years later, we're still working on developing and getting these techniques more refined and refined. We're just repeating that cycle. So before students can go into the second stage in the cycle of training, which is forms, forms are simply any series of fundamental movements practiced by yourself that are done in a pattern. So this can obviously be forms, pumse, kata, whatever style that you're doing. But it is also kicking combinations. It can even be different drills that you're practicing by yourself, whether it's punching combinations, blocking combinations, that you can practice as an individual and work on learning how to sequence the blocks and the strikes together without any other interference, without any other input. Once you are good at sequencing these different techniques together, then you can move to the third stage of the cycle of training, which is sparring. Sparring is simply any partner drill. Partner drills consist of, obviously, since sparring is the title, sparring, any sparring drill. Okay? Whether that is a situational drill, whether it's a reflex drill, whether that's a footwork drill, whatever it is that you might be working on, all these different drills that you're working and moving with another student, they're all considered sparring. Also in there can be considered different target drills. Normally you would say fundamental movements is where your target drills are primarily practiced. It's just you kicking, the other person's holding the target. And that is true. That would be under fundamental movements. That's where the majority of your target drills would be considered learning how to develop is under fundamental movements. However, in forms, we're sequencing those. So if we're doing combinations of movements on the targets in a set pattern, that's under forms. If it's more freestyle and my coach or another student is working and moving the target in a non-memorized pattern, technically that would be under a sparring drill because I'm working with a partner. Another thing people don't consider is any of our self-defense drills. Whether it's, Hapkido wrist locks or wrist escapes, or whether we're rolling on the ground and working with a partner trying to take these different holds and moves and learn how they work against another individual. That is all considered sparring. So any partner drill is considered under the heading of sparring. And last but not least is the fourth stage in the cycle of training, which is self-defense. And self-defense is very simple. You cannot practice it in the gym. You cannot fake or simulate the realism of someone actually trying to harm you. If you're doing a weapons class, okay, I'm not trying to cave your skull in, okay, I'm trying to teach you. So you have that whole sense of safety that you know that your partner's not actually trying to kill you. Well, in the street, that's gone. This person actually is trying to harm you, okay? So the goal is to train the other 3 areas in the cycle of training where they're as efficient and as useful as possible, so that hopefully we never have to use the 4th stage, which is self-defense. We want to prepare ourselves to not use them, in a sense. If it is ever necessary and we're in a situation that we can't walk away from, hopefully all of our training that we've done, and depending on where you're at and how many years you've trained, hopefully all that training pays off and you're ready. But it all depends on how many times you've gone through that cycle. If you're a white belt and you've gone through the cycle 1 time and you get jumped, you're probably not going to do very well in a street fight. You might get lucky, but I don't really count on luck. If you are a 5th degree black belt and if you've gone through that cycle thousands and thousands of times, so many times that you can't even count, and you're jumped, you should have very little problems whatsoever unless weapons are involved, and that makes it dicey no matter how much skill and practice you do. So the 4 stages in the cycle training are fundamental movements, forms, sparring, and self-defense. We always want to return back to basics, always going back to those fundamental movements, refining them, making them better, more efficient, smoother, cleaner, faster, so that when we practice them in our forms, that we show our skills not only to the other students, but we really learn how to sequence these different movements together so they can be more cohesive. The 3rd stage is probably where we spend 90% of our time as martial artists, in sparring drills, in self-defense drills. All these drills that we spend most of our time working with a partner teaches us the fastest, most efficient way is working with partners. So training by yourself is good, training with a partner is 3 times more good. Or better, whatever. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys really liked what we're doing today and sharing some of this knowledge and some of these different skills that we're doing, share this with your friends, and God bless and keep on kicking.